howdy folks, good morning. I'm going to be actually canning for the first time in the new kitchen. I'll show you what I got. So yesterday, I don't know which video is going to come out first, but I had double the amount of zucchini that I shredded into two cup size portions, and I froze them, and that's going to be for, you know, making zucchini bread in the future. But I just picked all these pickles this morning, as you can see, and I'm about to boil some jars to sterilize them, and we're going to get these washed and prepped to be canned. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I got out my medium-sized pot here, and I actually put a bread cooler or pie cooler on the bottom there. Alright, so I'm just filling up this. This holds, looks like 7 pint jars, and it's going to be a lot less water than the bigger pot that I normally use. So we're just going to get this filled just to cover the jars, and then I'll get that on the stove, and we'll get that boiling for 15 minutes to sterilize. Alright, so this is about as heavy of a pot that I would put up on here. Just because, you know, I'm not sure about the new glass top, so this is gonna be it, I think. But I got that metal piece on the bottom just to keep the jars off the bottom of the pot, to get too much direct heat, and I gotta get a little bit bigger one for this pot. But normally I have a little bit smaller pot that holds about 4 quarts and 4 of these pints. So, but I'm going to use this today and see how it goes. I just want to point out, I'm going to lower this camera down a little bit. You want vinegar with 5% acidity. During COVID and just after COVID, they were trying to sell stuff with 3% acidity. You want at least 5% when you're doing pickles or green beans or anything like that. Alright, so I didn't film it, but in this, I'm making my brine. So in this gallon jug, which I normally use to fill my Berkey, I'm going to commandeer this for this season's brine. I put 10 cups of filtered water from my Berkey. Now that I added 2 cups of the 5% vinegar, and now I'm going to add 1 cup of canning and pickling salt, which I keep in this bag here. Then I'm going to make sure I dissolve that salt good, and that'll be my brine for this batch of pickles. Alright, so far, dealing with this new kitchen, as far as canning and using everything that's in close proximity, is freaking awesome. My new stove, this water started boiling in about 12 minutes, whereas on my other stove, a pot this size would have been around 35, excuse me, even 40 minutes. Oh, unbelievable. So I'm going to get these lids and rings in some warm water, at least the lids, the ring not that necessary, even though what do you call it, ball tells you don't really need to do that anymore. But I like the idea, just in case there's like dust and contaminants on there, like here's a little something on there, that'll come off when you not boil them but heat the water, warm it up. I got these guys all cleaned. I'm going to start slicing them up, and then I got to run outside and grab some dill from the garden. Alright, so I just got my lids in some warm water there. I picked my dill, and I'm experimenting this year with a little bit less dill. I think I've been putting way too much, and it makes it very strong. And then I got some fresh garlic from the garden this year, and each jar is going to get one clove. All right, so I'm going to get my jars out of here. And usually I keep some water in them, but I don't need to in this application because we're going to be filling these jars with cold pickles, and we're going to bring them up to temperature slowly. So I just need to empty these, put them on the counter here, on a towel of course. We got these new granite countertops. I don't want to put hot stuff on them if, you know, hot and cold doesn't mix. You put a hot jar on a cold surface, it'll probably crack. So I know I got too many jars here. I'm pretty sure I got maybe one too many jar, maybe two too many, I'm not positive. But I'd rather have an extra jar than not enough. And you never know, you might miscalculate, and it doesn't hurt anything to sterilize jars. So I'm actually going to discard this water and put some fresh water in there when I go to can. Normally I would reuse this water, but I don't know, something's telling me just go ahead and switch it out today. It's not a big deal. All right, so I got my dill ready to go right here, and I got my garlic prepped and ready. Now all I got to do is slice these up, determine how many jars I need, and then start filling. Alright, so I just quickly dropped just a little bit of dill and 1 or 2 garlic cloves in each of these 5 jars. So for now I'm just going to start trimming up these, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a rough measurement, because you don't want them any taller really than here. So I'm just going to get my thumb there. So these, you know what, this long one I'm going to cut in half, will be fine. I'm going to do the same thing with this one, just going to cut it in half. So these other ones, I'm going to trim off both ends. So that's like a perfect pickle right there. And these ends, sometimes by not trimming off these ends, you don't get a long lasting crunch, and we want a crunch. So that's why I do this recipe. I find that this recipe is the crunchiest of all, and I'm going to cut these in a little bit. It depends on each pickle, but that's almost a little bit too high, but I'm going to let that go because I'm good like that. That'll be one of the first jars I eat. So same thing here. Just going to trim off both ends. Ooh, they smell so nice. I don't know, the way it's looking, I might get 5 jars. I don't know if I'll get more than that. We'll see. And start dropping your pickles in. So what I'll do now is I'll get a smaller pickle, and I'll start sneaking these smaller pieces in between here. So I don't care what they, actually look like. I don't really care how big the pieces are, as long as they fit. Honestly, I don't even care. Even these bigger ones, those babies can go right in like that. They all taste the same. Doesn't change anything. Sometimes I like it a little different size anyway. Who cares? Just go with the flow. If God wanted these all the same exact size, He would make all the same exact size pickles. when we grow them. But I still have a lot of these on the shelf from last season downstairs, so I got to make sure I eat those up first. Let's see, I think I'm going to end up with probably one more jar, so let's get a couple of these cloves in there, and I want to get some dill in here. So with the dill, you can use the stems too if you want. Like, you know, I could throw this whole thing in there. But in my previous years, I think I've been putting a little too much dill in, so I'm trying to back it off a little bit and see if that changes the flavor. And they say, don't cram them in there, but you know what? They end up loosening up anyways. So once you get them in there, packed tight, now what we could do is drop a few slices in there. Like that. Oh, you know what? I almost forgot. I gotta add my crushed red pepper and my pickling spice too. No big deal. I'll just get that in there right now. So here I'm just using a pickling spice. I'm going to drop approximately 2 teaspoons. There's some bay leaves in here. If you happen to get a bay leaf in there, fine. I mean, I'll even do 1 scoop just to try some of these out, see how it comes out. I don't mind experimenting. I know a lot of people, they stick to their recipes like to the grave. I don't do that. And this time I'm going to use a little crushed red pepper in each one, but I'm only going to put a 1/4 teaspoon or less. I just want a little bit in there. I used to put a cayenne pepper piece in each one, but it was just too strong. So last year I did not do the crushed red pepper, but I'm doing it this year. So yeah, I don't need that last jar there, so we're going to end up with 6 pints, which probably would have been 2.5 quarts, something like that. So here I'm just going to cut these in half, drop them in. And what I end up doing when I first open a jar, I'll actually just pull those little pieces out with a fork and just eat them like that. Some people, I think, get a little fussy. I don't. Don't ever be afraid to try different things. So let's see, maybe I got a fat. If I got a decent end piece, drop that in there too. Turn it into a nice little slice. Alright. So now what we're going to do is, actually make sure I put dill in here, yep. So I got a couple pieces of garlic, I'll drop one in there, and I'll drop one in that one. So now I'm going to pour the brine in over the sink, because I got a grate down in there, I like that, and we'll go from there. So when we did this kitchen, we got this farm sink and it came with this grate on the bottom, and I really love it. Alright, so all I'm going to do is slowly fill these up, and I'm going to not fill beyond that right there. That's all you need. And I know a lot of people, when they first start canning, they want to get as much in that jar as possible. Get out of that habit. Don't be afraid to leave a little space in the jars. But you'll see after these things are canned through the process that they'll all be floating and there'll be plenty of room in the jars. It might have seemed like I packed them in there tight, but I did not. So now I got that much brine left in here. That'll go in the refrigerator for the next batch of pickles. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe these rims because I know I touched a couple of them. So I'm just going to grab a clean paper towel and I'm going to wet it without getting any of this in my pickles, but it's only water, so it ain't going to bother anything if you got a drop in there. But I'm going to go ahead and just wipe just to make sure there's no contaminant on there. You never know, you get a piece of dust or something float down on there. Man, he smelled good. So what I'll do is, let's see, I'm going to put this right in the sink so you can see. I'm just going to take one of these at a time with the magnet. Just put it over. Make sure you only have one. So when I'm done covering these, I should have one left in the pot because I did not use one jar. There's my one extra. Alright, so now we're going to grab a ring. Just going to put it on loose for a second. And you'll notice some of these are like rusty looking. That's going to happen when you deal with the acids. Doesn't bother anything. When they get too corroded and they don't clean up very well, then I discard them. Because you always have plenty of rings. You end up trying to find a way to store them, and I store them on strings downstairs, then I hang them from the ceiling. So now we're just going to, each one of these, we're just going to finger tight. That's about it right there. And we're going to place it in our canner. Alright, so I'm going to put this back in here, and that just keeps the jars off the bottom. Now, I'm not going to put hot water in here because the contents of the jars are relatively cold, room temperature-ish. So I'm just going to put these in, and I'm just going to fill it with a lukewarm water because you want to bring up the temperature of the contents of the jar roughly at the same time as the water inside the pot. And I'm only going to fill this so it's a ½ inch over the tops of these. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this large burner on. Put it on not quite high. So I'm going to sneak this serving spoon in here, and this way I could slide my thermometer in here. So we'll see what the temperature is. I mean, it might be 80 degrees or something right now, but so we're gonna bring this temperature up relatively slow. You should be able to hopefully see that. And I'm making sure this is not touching any jars. So I'm not gonna make you watch the whole thing at this stage because it's gonna take a little bit to get this up to temperature. But I'm gonna bring it up to, I don't know, 120 or 130 degrees, then I'll turn the camera back on. Alright, it took a couple minutes just to get up to that temperature. But what we're doing here, it's called the pawpaw method, and it's a low temperature pasteurization method. And it's technically not approved by the Food and Drug Administration or whoever, you know, the FDA, whoever monitors this crap. But who cares, as long as you're not getting sick or anything and the outcome is good. Matter of fact, I have a jar that I opened a little. Actually, I opened this jar a couple weeks ago, right here. This is from last season, and I'm going to show you while that temperature is coming up. Let me keep an eye on that though. All right, I'm grabbing a fork. And let's see, make sure you can see in there. So this is one from last year. Still crunchy. Beautiful. So this jar is about a year old. Here's one of the small pieces I did, just like you saw me cut today. Crunchy. And I backed off the salt content a little bit to experiment. I may eat another one, little one. I don't know if you can hear the crunch, but it's definitely crunchy. But man, these things are awesome. Once you open them, you throw them in the fridge, and they last quite a bit. Usually I eat them a little faster. Alright, so it's still a little early. The temperature's still coming up slow. But what you're going to want to do here is, as soon as you hit your 180 degree Fahrenheit mark, whoops, I went past. Let me just do this. Once you hit 180 degrees, you start your timer, and you want to stay between 180 and 185 degrees for 30 minutes. So you do not want to go above or below during that time period. So now, this is my first time canning on this new stove, so I'm going to have to watch this very carefully and monitor it for the entire 30 minutes. My other stove, I struggled because the temperature would fluctuate. That thing was tired. And you heard me talk about it in older videos. But since then, we did our kitchen, obviously, and you know, I'm ready to get into some serious canning here. Alright folks, we're just about ready to hit 180 degrees. Watching it closely, but I just want to point out we have not only this fan blowing or running above here, but the Bosch dishwasher is running not 4 feet away from this camera, and I don't know if the camera will even pick up the sound. I just wanted to say that. But we're just about to hit 180 degrees. I have not even touched the control up here. So I'm going to give it just a smidge more. I want to make sure it at least hits the 180 before I hit my timer. Alright, I'm calling that good right there. So I already have this timer set for 30 minutes. And now I'm going to monitor this for that time period. I don't know if it'll creep up to 185. It probably will, so I may have to back this off slightly in that time period. But we'll see you in a little bit. Alright, so you can see I'm right at 185 degrees. So what I did was I turned the burner down and I turned my fan on very high to the highest setting, and that's maintaining the 185. Should be perfect. And again, I'm getting used to the new stove. So now if something happens and I go too far above the 185, what I'll do is I'll just boil these for 20 minutes and can them normally. But that's pretty good right here. As long as it's maintaining at 185, I feel good about it. Alright, so we got about roughly 10 minutes left, and let me see. You can see that the temperature did come down slightly. I did adjust it down quite a bit. Let's make sure you can see that. But again, I'm just getting familiar with this new stove, how it's going to react to the water temperatures and stuff like that. So for the first time doing it on this stove, I'd say that's pretty good. I got on the high end at 185, but I never exceeded it. So I'm pretty happy with what's going on so far. This whole process was quite a bit faster than my old stove. I just want to point that out. So in the future, it's going to be a time saver for me. I just need to adjust some of my pot sizes, and I'd like to get a smaller pressure canner actually, to do some of this indoors, and I'll save the bigger canners for when I work outside. And that's just being precautious about this glass top. It's a larger glass top stove. It doesn't have the support of my old stove, so just I don't want to do any damage, even though I'm pretty sure it would be fine. Alright, so we're in between 180 185. We got 1 minute 21 seconds left. I'm going to go ahead and shut this burner off. There's no way that temperature is going to come down and drop below 180 in that 1 minute's time. And then we'll get these removed from the canner. Alright, success. Alright, let's see, how hot is this thing? Let's get this off of here. Alright, sometimes you can let these sit in the water for a little bit. I'm not going to do that today. I don't want them to pasteurize any more than I should. So just dripping the water off the top. Just don't want no excess water on here. Boy, them look beautiful. So in a little bit, you're going to start hearing them pop where the lids are sealing. Give a nice presentation here. 6 jars. Should hear probably a quick pop at some point. I'm just going to lightly get this water off the top here. You don't really have to do this. We'll try and get them to catch one on camera sealing.